44,000. Now I will deliver the entire.
Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Mope Ogun Yusuf. 70,000 naira. Yes, that's the new minimum wage, and there will certainly be enough to talk about on that one. But it's now a week since the Supreme Court gave its landmark judgment granting financial autonomy to local governments. As expected, all shades of opinion have trailed this judgment, ranging from the very positive to that of those who believe the lordships may have stretched a little too far the meaning of the use the current Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. These are some of the questions we mull tonight. My guest is a former member of the 8th Senate and Human Rights. Well, let's start first and foremost with the minimum wage issue. Do you think that 70,000 naira is a fair wage, given where Labour first of all started with this particular discussion?
Well, you see, in life, there is nothing that was per annum to protect themselves. That was nobody's 10, 15, 30, 40 years ago. So, that I'm talking philosophically. Now, practically, I don't see country. What do we produce? We export oil and we export agriculture. But how do we earn it? Will the government go about printing money in order to meet our minimum wage? Minimum wage is not simply about staffs of the federal government, staffs of the state government, and staff of local government. It's also about you. You have a driver, you have to pay him 70,000. You have a housemaid, you have to pay her 70,000. In 70,000, or a cleaner or a shopkeeper. So it's also about other people who are not of. If the federal government now raised the minimum wage to 250,000, no state or local government, so it's about every one of us. So government cannot promise what it can deliver. If you promise 200,000 and you can't deliver, there will be a problem. So I believe that I can afford.
Do you think that this 70,000
by the Federal Allocation Committee to the states? Now, there will have been a roadmap that we are getting out of this, we are getting into this. But it's a big gamble the president has taken. If at the end of this international hero, if at the end, endlessly, then he will certainly pay the price for it. So, right now, as it has been done in Brazil, in Argentina, in many countries of the world that have taken on economic reforms, reforms happens, there will be hardship, there will be protest, and the way the government manages that discontent will determine its own survival.
Yeah,
So what I'm saying now is that what the government has done now by increasing minimum wage, also by sharing 20 drops of price to the states, will in some way calm the situation, but it's not going to, because the protest that is being called was not called by Labour. It was called by some amorphous, anonymous forces. And that is one of the dangers, because I have been a protester of my life, and that is where we spend most of our life protesting, standing, resisting, standing up against fundamental issues in the country. But a protest needs two things. It has to have a purpose, of course, which is hunger, which is reasonable. People can protest that. But it has to have leadership. Leadership that can drive the process, that can claim to drive the issues, and also that when demands need to be made are made and the negotiation can be made on the table. But you have no leader. And that is the danger. Protests can, where it forces government to make fundamental reforms. That is fine. But it leads to Sudan. That is chaos, that is anarchy, that is destruction. And as such, any protest that will be credible and that will visible leaders who will own up to it. So that is my own view on that.
And the protests have been from different quarters. I mean, yes, we have, people who are speaking on social media. We have people who have been speaking sometimes within the corridors of power. And, we have people of, like I said, the former whip now of the Senate, who has also been granting interviews, speaking very scathingly of, the current administration. Some people will say it's a form of protest, which, as a matter of fact, gone down well with the party, which has now written to the National Assembly Do you think that this is testing the tolerance levels of the leadership of the National Assembly to see how they too are tolerant of dissent, especially when the person seems to be speaking about what precisely is happening?
Well, if I'm going to speak of myself, I will say that I stand for the rights of people to express their opinion and to criticize when things are going wrong and to also appreciate when things go right. There's nothing wrong with any lawmaker expressing his opinion. But in case of Ndube, I will say this. He has been in the National Assembly for about 20 and has occupied experience as a member of the National Assembly for such a long period of time. Add to that, he is also occupying a very important position as a principal officer in the Senate. And he is also a prominent, a very important member of his own party. He has a lot of channels, and the one who is a principal officer, there are some privileges attached to principal officers, which is they have more access to the leadership in the country than even people who are simply floor members. So, if you express your opinion, which you have the right to do that, the political party which you represent, which also send your name as a nominee for that principal office, can exercise its own right and say this. I think he's paying the price for his opinion, and he spoke not out of ignorance, but he very much knew the consequences of what will happen to him. And one thing about the National Assembly, especially the Senate, is that before you make any dissenting opinion, and you wanted to have the necessary impact, it's good you consult people who share the same opinion with you. If not, you will stand alone. See, any senator now, no senator stood for Ningi, and no senator is standing for Ndube, because he must have done it as an individual, as a dismal opinion. The rule in the National Assembly is that if someone is reprimanded for a certain offense, you may likely also send yourself to the gallows. And if it reaches a point of suspension, it comes with a lot of charges for someone to pay. Is that Your salary will be blocked, your allowances will be blocked, your office will be locked. You will be denied access when you see them. When you speak, you should know that you're going to carry your cross yourself. If you come from a ruling party and you are expected to work in tandem with everyone, in our own case,
are those unspoken rules or those that's taken for granted?
yes, in our own Buhari, for the fact that Baraki never emerged as a president of the Senate because of his royalty thing. But when you have a Senate president, the Speaker of House, that is controlling a National Assembly in line with the policies and principles and make such a remark, you will stand alone. So people wonder. When it happened to Ningi and it happened in Dume, the PDP senators are quiet, the Labour Party senators are quiet.
Yeah,
NPP,
why do you think that is?
They are quite the same purpose. The danger of it is that as a politician, if you are elected into office, your constituents want you to go and get involved in the business of. And if you happen to express opinion that led to your suspension, you will not get your solidarity from your constituents. Because people who come out to the Senate and say this.
But does that have anything to do with how? So basically, what you seem to be saying is that how the leadership emerges is very important to whether or not people are able to express dissent within the chambers of the National Assembly.
Yes, that is why at the end of or at the beginning of every session of National Assembly, no president would fold his arms and see the emergence of a rebellious or dissenting. What mistake Buhari made in 2015.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple. The stories that touch you anytime, anywhere.
You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. Our guest tonight is a former member of the 8th Senate and human rights activist, Senator Shehu Sani. Are you disappointed that they seem to be a bit quiet or real? We hear a few voices every now and again, but we haven't really seen any real opposition to any government. Almost everything that the government has brought in has been approved without so much as a whimper. In some instances, at least there should be a debate. There should be a seeking to understand what certain things are about. But we don't seem to get that enough.
You see, our democracy is still it's not a learning process. And many of those who very simply escaped lost by whiskers. And they came in there and they see the way Ningi was treated. And the whole of them now have to simply try to navigate through the landmines. So the fear, actually, of consequences of against you without orders backing you is virtually the reason why many of them are silent. And let me tell you this. And once a Senate is inaugurated, the opposition are supposed to vote for their own leader. The opposition is someone also who is not too hard, who is not too rebellious, and who will not be troublesome to the party. And so it happens.
To understand that subsidy, which we thought was gone, is back. It's about 1,170 naira. If that is the situation, would you say that there has been clarity, really, on where we're going with our economic reform? So the idea was that let the market decide. But given what is happening with the economy and the fact that people are really, really struggling as a result of these hikes, don't you think that there needs to be a little more transparency?
People appreciate him. But if it couldn't reform, then people will now put him in the line of those who will not be continuous subsidy all our lives. That even without Tinubu, we could have been heading to the cliff. So I believe, and the best way to do that, for there to be enough leaders anywhere. But investment in agriculture should not also be done like was pumped in what they call Uncle Boras program. Apart from the rice pyramid, which we have seen that lasted over for 48 hours and disappeared. And there is no abundance. Borders were closed. So we must address, if there is any ministry where the president needs to be the minister, it's the Ministry of Agriculture. If we address the problem of hunger, other things will come. But where you have people that are hungry, they will not listen to the issues on economic reforms. They will not issue the issue of GDP. They're not going to listen to the issue of anything you are doing because they are hungry. So,
economy, which the Attorney General went to challenge and got victory on, the local governments now should receive their funds directly. I don't know where you stand on the spectrum of reactions, but do you think that this is a positive development?
Who will go down in history as a man who has restored the enslavement and captivity of the states and their governors. For over 2.5 decades since the restoration of democracy, local governments have simply been departments in the office of a state governor, local elections, and corner the resources that are supposed to go to local government for their own purpose, and they take credit for the job which they do with the money for local government. Many of local governments in the country, many of them don't even go to work because there is nothing to work there. They only go to offices when the salaries are due. The moment they collect their salary, everybody just will come to Abuja over in the last 15 years, where people ordinarily would have lived comfortably in their local government. If resources go there and they can see projects. If we go back 30 years ago or 40 years ago, you will see the cities of their states because they can get what they want within their own villages. The Supreme Court, governors who are objecting, are simply not happy that they will. Now, if the president would withhold money for the states, you call him a dictator, but this is what they are doing in local. So now you are only going to have elected local government chairmen, elected councillors who will be in control.
What is currently happening with CX and the fact that local government chairmen still, when these local government elections are conducted, the people who emerge are hardly different from those who so much work to be done to truly, get the benefits, the full benefits of the expectations of this particular judgment. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you see, steps. There are this first step, and this first step has proven to be positive, fantastic. The local government now have a legal instrument and their autonomy. And the next thing is to have an electoral commission which is not within the control of state governors, which will bring in legitimate next will be achieved. When you have autonomy, even if the local government chairman is a stooge of the governor, or is acolyte of the governor, or is a trap of the governor of the state, the point is that he will take responsibility for his actions. So we send money to you. Before, the local government chairman would say the money was not sent to me, it was sent to the states. And I didn't know it. But now you are responsible. You have the to your local government. The next is to reform the election. The financial aspect of his address, next is to election of local government chairman and an independent, whether INEC or a different electoral body.
Senator Shehu Sani, member of the 8th Senate and human rights activist, thank you so much for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you for having me, Austin.
That's the program tonight. But as always, we want to hear from you. Thank you for watching. I'm Mal Yusuf. Good night.